So this is like a super versatile technique, and I've heard it in tracks from the likes of Hot82, D-Nox Beckers, Maceo Plex, Rampa, the list goes on. Hey guys, Dilby here, welcome back to my channel. I'm here in my studio in Berlin and I've got an awesome tutorial for you today. If you've checked out my videos before, then it's great to have you back. If you're new, then welcome. Either way, make sure to like, comment, subscribe, all of that good stuff. It really helps out the channel and helps other people find these videos. What we're going to talk about is a common technique used in melodic house and techno, progressive, tech house, afro house, basically everything. So what we're going to do is basically synthesize a hi-hat line that we're going to then automate and manipulate to create tension and release within the track. Having this white noise synthesizer is going to allow us to shape the sound as we like to fit with our track. In things like afro house or some kind of like tribal influence tech house, it provides like a really cool juxtaposition between like organic elements like shakers and things like real drum sounds. I'll also show you how we can use an Ableton instrument rack to group the synth and effects together and then assign different parameters to macro knobs. This gives us the ability to automate a bunch of different parameters with the turn of like one or two knobs. Of course, you can take these concepts and techniques and apply them to different elements of your track. By using these macros, it really gives you a lot of freedom to kind of experiment and try things out in your track. Anyway, enough talking. Let's jump into Ableton and get this thing going. So here we are inside Ableton. This is a project I've been using for tutorials. If you've watched any of my videos before, you'll probably recognize it. And I've just got a fresh MIDI track here, which is what we're going to use to add in this white noise hat. Okay, so first thing, we're going to add in an operator from Live Devices. And I'm going to make the oscillator into a white noise, and we'll turn off the filter, and we will turn on the envelope here, take the sustain down and add a little bit of release, take off a bit of release and decay, something around like that. Great. Add in a MIDI clip. I'll just program this. I've got really high latency because I'm screen recording, so I can't really play anything in, which is why I never do on these videos. But feel free to do that yourself if you're following along. And I'll add in some swing. This is one I use quite frequently. Now, next thing I'm going to do is add in a MIDI effect, velocity, add some random. And I'm going to pull this random knob to about 10. And what this is doing is, let's say this MIDI clip was every note a velocity value of 50. What this is saying is randomly assign a value between 50, in this case, if everything is set at 50, and plus or minus 10. So that could be 55, 56, 43, 48. This is just going to give a bit of variation and an organic feel to the hat pattern. Next up, I'm going to add in a glue compressor, and let's bring this down, fast attack, fast release, because it's a really fast pattern. So that's just going to make sure that those volumes are a bit more consistent. And we'll add in an EQ8 here. I'm going to take off some of the low frequencies. I want a kind of mellow curve like this. And then I'll just put on a 48 dB filter on the end. Now we don't need any of that really high frequency. We're just kind of making a hat. So we want that peak around somewhere between 7 and 10K. That's the norm for hats. And in a track like this, I would normally have a shaker or a tambourine up in this kind of between 10 and 20K frequency range. Okay, our next move is to add in an auto pan. This is just going to help us to create some movement in the panorama. And now I want to add a reverb, which is going to add some space to this sound. The small room preset, and we'll pull back the dry wet a bit. Cool. Now let's chuck an overdrive on top of that. And this dynamics knob on the overdrive, what it does is basically an inbuilt compressor. So we want to have that at 100 because we've programmed in this velocity and we've controlled the dynamics with this compressor. We're going to use the filter here to only affect the high end, and we'll bring that down to about 20%. So that's going to kind of beef up the sound and also bring up that reverb quite a lot. Now I'm just going to add in another EQ8 on the end here, and that's just going to be used to catch any additional frequencies that this overdrive is adding in. You can see it kind of adds in a bit of mud there, and we're also going to use the gain on this to automate the volume instead of using the track volume fader. The next step is to group up all of these devices, and we will start to add in some macros. Command G to group that, and I can minimize some of these that I'm not going to use or not going to change anymore, sorry. Now we click this to show the macros, and we're going to go into the mapping section. So the first value we're going to map is the volume on the operator. We'll map that to macro 1. And we will also map the decay on the operator to macro 1. The volume, we're going to set that to -11 as the minimum value and -9 is the maximum value. We don't want a huge change in volume there, but when we increase this knob, we just want it to increase the volume a bit because that's going to help to increase the intensity. Now on the decay settings, let's have this at the lowest setting. We'll have it around 80 milliseconds or something. It should sound good. Yeah, and then the top setting, something like that, 1.25 seconds. Okay, additionally on this same macro, we're going to assign the dry wet from the reverb and the decay time from the reverb. So the dry wet will have it somewhere between, like, say 20 and 40. We don't want it too crazy. We don't want to lose the sound completely. And we also don't want to kind of lose the space completely when we bring the knob right down. Now let's set the decay time. Something like that. And at a maximum. Yeah, that sounds good. You always want to move this knob when you're setting these values. It's best to do it by ear. That way you can just kind of tune it in for exactly what you want. Let's have a listen to this. So that's exactly the vibe we're looking for, and I'll just color this and rename it. Now let's assign a macro to this amount knob on the pan, and this is obviously just going to allow us to change the panorama. Let's bring it up to a maximum value of about 60. Cool. Now I'm just going to hide some of these devices so we can work here, and we're also going to map the gain as I mentioned. And that's just going to allow us to add automation if we need to from this rack. So as an added extra, I'm going to add in a flanger here. And you could do this also with a chorus or a phaser, any kind of modulation device. Now we're going to map the on-off button to macro 4, and we're going to map the dry-wet to macro 4. And the on-off, we put this at a value of 1 and a value of 0. What this allows us to do is turn the knob here, and any time that it goes above 0, the device turns on. When you pull it back down, the device turns off. And the dry-wet, let's put that to something like 50%. So this just gives us another parameter that we can automate and kind of create some more interesting automation throughout the track. So I'll just play this along with the track and turn some knobs on the Ableton push here and let you hear how that kind of sounds. So that's a wrap, guys. I hope you enjoyed it, and hopefully it gives you some inspiration for your future productions. In terms of the macro knobs and the automation, you can probably see how exciting and interesting this is, how many possibilities it really opens up for experimenting in your tracks. So thanks for joining me. It's great to have you here on the channel. Make sure you drop a comment and let me know how you plan to use this technique in your own productions. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you can stay up to date with all my future videos. But also follow me on Instagram. It's @DilbyDJ. I post really regularly and I'm really active in my DMs, so hit me up. Well, that's it for today. I've got to go write some music. Good luck with your productions, and I'll catch you next time. Peace!